What is up, people of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I am very happy and excited today to talk about and, well, just review and break down the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, titled New World Order. So this is going to be, my first reviews of a series. Instead of being like mega nitpick breakdown on this, that, the other, oh, there was a little engraving on Falcon's wing that signified that Steve said this. It's more of a, don't get me wrong, we'll get into details, but I want to get into my first impressions to begin with. So with premiere episodes, I always expect them, as I guess you kind of should, to be a bit more than that of your typical episode in a season or a series. And this is shorter than WandaVision, so I do expect like all 6 episodes to be quite prestigious, with throwing as much as they can at the wall in terms of trying to impress us, whether that's with visual effects, shots, and just everything else that is also important, of course, as well, like development, good story. The point I'm trying to get to was, as you'd expect, a decent episode. It had action in it. I felt like it did a good job at setting up but also touching base with Sam and Bucky post blip, exploring their personal lives with some decent character development, showing Bucky's trauma, but also kind of weaving in Sam's personal relationship with his sister and family, and a bit of conflict going on there. Stuff that we haven't really had before, if I remember correctly, in the MCU. I mean, of course, they dedicate so much time in the big budget movies, but when you only have a couple of hours, there's only so much you can give, and that is why I think so many fans will be thankful for what we're seeing on screen in this series with these 2 characters. And also, considering the Flagsmashers, I mean, if you've seen the trailers, you know that's going to go quite hard in this series. They did a good job at setting that up in this first episode, to the point of where it was quite a thing by the end, and like you kind of know what you're getting into moving forward. Now, what's going to be interesting about this as well is another aspect I want to get into just before we get into the breakdown details of this episode, is that I felt like there wasn't a bunch of hype surrounding Falcon and the Winter Soldier as much as there was WandaVision, or maybe you might disagree with me there, but maybe it's just off the back of WandaVision when more and more Falcon and Winter Soldier trailers were coming out. Don't get me wrong, there's people excited for it, but I did feel like, intuitively, there wasn't as much buzz. I hope this first episode changes that. I don't want to call it legendary or anything, but it's a pretty cool episode, and I feel like this is really going to cater to so many fans, and I'm just fascinated to see the fallout and what people say about it. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the actual details of the episode. So the episode picked up, of course, with Sam getting dressed. He packs the shield away, Captain America's shield, and this following line is very thematic of not just this episode, but the series as a whole. If you don't know already, or if you're kind of going into this completely blind, this is obviously post-blip. There's no Captain America. Falcon was more or less meant to take the mantle of Captain America, and that is why we hear that line at the beginning of this episode from Steve, his voice, old man Steve, say, "How does it feel?" And then we hear Falcon, or Sam should I say, like it's someone else's. And across all of the episodes of this series, we will see Sam kind of come to terms with how he can embody and personify a Captain America of his own. But initially, it's about him rejecting that, to the point of where at the end of this episode, the government have appointed one, and he doesn't like the idea of that. Well, maybe you should have taken the mantle, but that's what this journey will be about. I felt like it couldn't have been a more of a typical and obvious decision to start this first episode of this series, which is, as I said, more catered towards the Avengers-y action level stuff rather than what they approached with WandaVision, with an action scene. This action scene was pretty good. I thought the choreography was decent. It did feel very Marvel-esque action as well. Obviously, we had frickin' Sam being briefed on that criminal organization known as LAF, which is targeting Captain Vasant, one of the military's liaisons, and Sam has to go up against these high-powered criminals, but we need to make sure that the military isn't seen operating out there in the airspace, so that's why they're kind of getting Falcon to do it just in the nick of time. I also liked the decision to make this fight something that can be likened to that of Falcon's abilities himself, well, not really abilities, but Stark tech of his wings, if you know what I mean, with the fact that the others went out in the wingsuits as well. So it was literally like, okay, so now you're playing on his level. The only thing I had a little bit of an issue with there is Sam gets thrown away in the plane to the other end, and then the next scene more or less cuts to the fact that they're all in wingsuits. I'm pretty sure to put on those wingsuits on all of those criminals, it would take more than the transition that they left in this episode. Do you know what I mean? Like, you'd have to get this on. Oh, okay, right. get that on, zip that up, but it just already happened. Either way though, Falcon saves the captain, and then we go to Joaquin Torres. Now, this was an interesting scene in of itself, because not only does it tease the whole Flagsmashers thing, where he was going around with his phone with an app that you could kind of pick up these hidden Flagsmasher symbols, and where they rally together for recruitment or whatever. Torres started detailing that this organization thought that the world was better during the blip, and that they want a world unified without borders, and that's why a lot of people, you know, are kind of liking the face value ideology of that. But let's talk about Joaquin for a second. Joaquin Torres. Now, if you didn't know already, when Falcon becomes, should I say, takes on the mantle of Captain America, he's actually passed the mantle of Falcon. And I feel like it's going to be interesting to see how they adapt that this series. He's been in it quite a lot this episode, with the end contacting Sam again about the whole Flag Smasher scene that happens later on, right at the end of the episode. And you can see with Sam's frustration about the shield and how that's going to develop, how he will likely take on the mantle. Are we going to see Joaquin in this series by the end become the new Falcon? I mean, you could kind of already see what they're doing here, even though, albeit, it's very obvious. But now, though, it does kind of remind me of a Batman-Robin relationship, you know, with how Joaquin Torres kind of kept liaising with Sam a couple of times in the episode. Do you know what I mean there? And considering he is Falcon as well in the comics after Sam takes on the mantle of Captain America. Up next, we have the scene with Sam giving the shield that is in his possession to the museum, which is something he didn't have to do. And you had that government guy, I can't remember who he was, but he was just like, yeah, thanks for doing that for us. Because he knew exactly what he wanted to do with the shield, with the government-appointed Captain America, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But the lines that Sam says next are very detailed of where his psyche is at. This thing, it's like we had literal therapy with Bucky, finally. He kind of needs that therapy. Where we also had that kind of being worked out for Sam as well, just through other things being fleshed out in the episode for his character and things said. The shield being now passed to someone else when he could have had that shield, if you know what I mean. So we had him discussing that a few months ago. Billions of people reappeared after 5 years away, sending the world into turmoil. We need new heroes, ones suited for the times we're in. Symbols are nothing without the women and men that give them meaning. And this thing, I don't know if there's ever been a greater symbol, but it's more about the man that propped it up, and he's gone. Now, there are more lines to that scene, but once again, it's kind of about him feeling like he's not worthy to be the pinnacle Captain America, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he kind of finds himself this season with that in mind. This gets further emphasized by Rhodey, or War Machine, whatever way you like it, asking why he didn't take up the mantle when he was kind of offered it on the platter, and yet again, he literally refers to those first lines in the show, you know, how does it feel, with Steve asking that, and I like seeing this Captain America display as well, with lots of different things going on. Like we had a Bucky stand as well, detailing how he was a friend and brother, killed in action, but it also details his current whereabouts remain unknown, having been labeled a fugitive following his escape from custody. But technically he's being offered a pardon, so he's not technically a fugitive right now, but I guess the museum isn't quite updated. But that's when we cut to that moment in the hotel, where we get a really cool flashback for the Winter Soldier. Maybe this is an unpopular opinion, I don't know, but I kind of wish he kept that haircut. I feel like it suits him, but the short hair suits him as well. But either way, we see the Winter Soldier literally rain down hell, Batman style, through a wall, grabs that guy. His methods are very savage Winter Soldier. I kind of miss seeing that. And it's revealed that obviously this is a flashback and a nightmare, if you will, with his past missions just tormenting him on what he did on behalf of Hydra. But also the person he killed in that scene is very linked to what we see with his own personal development in this episode, where we get a real look into the guilt, the psyche, and the amends that he's trying to make with people's lives that he's affected in the past. We had that a little bit more explored in those therapy scenes, which, you know, you had a bit of MCU humor in there. The main thing out of that therapy session is he's 100 years old and he's got no one. No family, no friends. I like how in this moment he did slightly open up a bit more, saying that this is new for me. I didn't have a moment to deal with anything, if you kind of think about it, other than a little bit of calm in Wakanda. But other than that, he went from one fight to another for 90 years, which is where we can dive into the Yori stuff now. I really like that. I mean, it must be so torturous, and we see that. I think it was fairly obvious the guilt that Sebastian Stan portrayed in Bucky's face when he was talking to Yori. I enjoyed all the funny moments there because obviously he's so old-fashioned. He's like, that's not how you do it. You kind of need to warm up first. But then you had the moment of guilt reinforced even more when Yori talks about his son's death. He doesn't know truly what happened to him. And then you see the guilt hit Bucky's face. Yeah, you kind of know and can put together the puzzle pieces of the flashback, the guy who was trying to get into his hotel room, shaking the keys. I would argue right now, Bucky's a lot more of a complex and messed up character that I am intrigued to see how he's going to cope with those nightmares of the past, even though he was practically brainwashed, than what I'm seeing with Sam. Now, Sam's stuff this episode was really fascinating to me, and I liked seeing that side of him, but I'm just, for now, more intrigued with this whole Winter Soldier haunting aspect that follows Bucky around. And I felt like, whilst I'm saying that Sebastian Stan did a great job this episode, they both did. I just felt like, I guess, Sebastian Stan had a bit more emotional stuff to work with the fact that he's got a lot more baggage. Now, as for Sam's personal fleshing out, we saw him go visit his sister and his nephews. They try and go to the bank to get some loans because Sam's figured out a way to flesh out that whole business. But the bank is just annoyingly more interested in the fact that he's Falcon. And even though they technically qualify for the loan, it's kind of true, and I can imagine that really affecting the real world. If everyone suddenly came back from the blip, imagine the amount of requests for loans and people who want to do things like with their business, or their business dissolved 5 years ago, they're trying to get it back. So that's like a really interesting repercussion from with a few billion people coming back that I liked seeing in WandaVision in a certain way, but just feeling the ripple effects of Thanos and what happened. I always like seeing that added to I guess the next phase of the MCU in moments like this, even though that banker was really annoying. So as for the whole Sam sister storyline, I get her struggle and frustration with him just trying to come in, and he wasn't kind of there before, and he's trying to right his wrongs where she's kind of been treading water for the past 5 years, barely kind of making it. We also had continued moments from Bucky with the girl, the kind of, do you want to call that a date? It was kind of more of a meet-up, I feel. He ends up bailing on that conversation about Yori's son because obviously he just can't stand the fact that it's bringing up the guilt in his head. He rushes to Yori's apartment to tell him, but he couldn't go through with it. Like, especially when he saw the little tribute to his son there. It does make me wonder, though, are they going to revisit that? Like, are they going to just abandon that and only have used it in episode 1 to kind of propel the guilt that Bucky has? Or is Yori going to find out? Like, I'm genuinely intrigued about that. But anyway, this is where more or less we're at the end of the episode now. It pans to Switzerland, where we have Joaquin Torres trying to scout out the Flagsmashers location for recruitment via the phone app again, and then boom, there's a robbery. Guy jumps out the window. He's definitely powered because his knees didn't break. He yeets people across like it's effortless. Basically Captain America kind of enhanced, and thanks to him kind of recording the whole thing, he's got this on camera, and he forwarded it to Sam, and they're gonna kind of keep that between them for now. But this moment definitely elevated the fact that, yeah, there's lots of little faction-y things going on out there, but they're not always too threatening, but they often bark louder than they can bite. But with this one, it's like, oh crap, this actually might be a problem for an Avenger, for Sam Wilson, for the Falcon, and soon to hopefully be Captain America. But this is when he was interrupted by his sister with the news broadcast saying that in the wake of recent events, that have left people vulnerable in the US, while we love heroes who put their lives on the line to defend Earth, we also need a hero to defend this country, to embody America's greatest values, someone to inspire us again, someone to be a symbol for all of us. So on behalf of the Department of Defense and Commander-in-Chief, the USA have basically appointed and recasted Captain America. Now that understandably would really frustrate Sam because it's very transparent that they only wanted him to kind of part with the shield so they could get hold of the shield possibly. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see how he gets the shield back, because in the trailers we do see him flinging the shield plenty of times. How they're going to approach this new Captain America and how he won't be everything they're trying to present him to be. And I'm actually kind of surprised that they didn't bring Bucky and Falcon together in terms of, going after the Flag. I don't mind that because I suppose they just wanted to set everything up in this episode, set and flesh out the characters before. Fleshing out the characters and just bringing them together, you could argue, would be a bit rushed. But this episode was, I think, around 50 minutes long. But so far, like, considering the story and considering that I kind of prefer to touch base first before springing into everything, it was paced reasonably well. And I'm kind of more hyped now for episode 2 to get them together, to get Baron Zemo involved again, to combat him and how he's trying to stop heroes. And along the way, learn that Sam is indeed Captain America. So overall, you know, I'd say this was strong. I would say it was also kind of typical of Marvel. Now, that's not a criticism or a flaw. I guess you could kind of take that as you will. It felt Marvel still. And if you're a fan of that typicality, then I feel like you should have enjoyed this. But I guess if you didn't enjoy it so much, maybe you're just not a huge fan of Bucky and Sam. Maybe it needs more time to grow on you. But for now, I would give it a thumbs up. I really enjoyed it. Decent action, decent character exploration. And as for the villains, I felt like maybe they should have shown Baron Zemo actually by the end. Because for now, it just seems like a street ground movement with arguably a powerful person under that mask. But for now, I just feel like we haven't felt how much weight there is to that could get you hyped into the following episodes, but that people who aren't as knowledgeable or haven't been watching the trailers have no idea about. I will, of course, be reviewing the second episode next week, so I'd love for you guys to leave me your thoughts down in the comments below. What did you most enjoy about the episode? What are you most looking forward to in the series? But if you did get this far in the video, I'd really appreciate a like. Make sure you subscribe if you're enjoying the reviews and breakdowns and just want to see more content on the channel just like this. Check me out on Twitter and the other links that are in the top pinned comment of the comment section. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you people of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the next video. Goodbye.